Hello, all. Welcome. This is Andrea Change with the Guild Literary Arts Organization. The Guild Literary Complex is a 30-year-old grassroots literary arts organization doing performance-based events in and around the Chicagoland area and virtually since uh, August of 2020. So we welcome you to this virtual event. Tonight we're going to be treated to a special reading with Nikki Giovanni, along with our special guest Emily Thornton Calvo, who's one of our 30 writers to watch, and Jordan Holmes. Let me introduce you. If you haven't heard of Nikki Giovanni, let me tell you a little bit about her. Nikki Giovanni's poetry, and by the way, I love her bio, but I couldn't read it possibly on air. Um, but the poetry combines fierce conviction, tender humor, and unwavering devotion to telling her truth as a black woman who came of age during the Black Power and Civil Rights movements. As a scholar, Virginia C. Fowler writes, she is the definitive poet of the people, employing seemingly simple language to explore complex issues of race, gender, love, and politics. Born in 1943 in Knoxville, Tennessee, Giovanni grew up near Cincinnati, Ohio. By the time she was in high school, she became involved in the civil rights movement, which became an important part of her life and central theme in her work. She is author of numerous works of poetry and nonfiction and several books for children. Three of her books were New York Times bestsellers, a testament to her accessibility and deeply engaging poetry. Um, a frequent lecturer and reader, Giovanni has taught at Rutgers University, Ohio State University, and now Virginia Tech, where she is a university distinguished professor. Tonight we'll be talking about her chapbook, Standing in the Need of Prayer, which was illustrated by Emily Thornton Calvo, again, one of the Guild Complex's 30 writers to watch. Emily is an artist, author, and poet. She performs in universities, bookstores, and the Art Institute through the Poetry Foundation. Lending color to the otherwise absurd, her first book of poems was released with a grant from the city of Chicago. A visual artist, Calvo includes poems in her paintings and collaborated with poet Nikki Giovanni on this particular book, Standing in the Need of Prayer. Calvo is currently working on writing a memoir about her gay father, who recorded his life for 23 years, and his archived tapes are now at the Kinsey Institute. Also joining us this evening is Jordan Holmes, otherwise known as Dexter Spitz. He was raised in Prince George's County, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. His curious mind led him to become a jack of all trades, a scientist, engineer, musician, spoken word artist, and entrepreneur. Holmes relocated to Chicago in 2014 after graduating from Virginia Tech, where he got his degree as a materials science engineer and somehow met mentor Nikki Giovanni. He began his pursuit of music career as Dexter Spitz, a witty, impactful, and energized lyricist. He explores experimental themes in his multi-sensory performance, such as his signature blacklight live band performances. Holmes is the founder and CEO of Only Pax. His versatility and his hustle has landed him attention locally and nationally, including NPR, the Chicago Tribune, Vocalo Radio, Voyage Chicago, and These Days News. So welcome to everyone today. I want to start with Jordan. Jordan had we just mentioned that he was mentored by Miss Nikki Giovanni, and he has the foreword for the book. So I'd like to ask Jordan if he could read his poetic foreword for the book. If you could start, Jordan.
Absolutely. So this piece is blackmail. By default, every letter that comes to my house is blackmail. Get it? Blackmail looks for a proper definition of what being a man is. Preacher man tells him to find God. Politician man tells him in God we trust but cannot be trusted. Policeman tells blackmail to raise his hands. Fireman sees the smoke and knows the heat is coming. Blackmail only arrives when they want something from you. Black woman wonders why black male only seems to listen to men for advice. Black male feels like the world is against him. Preacher man tells him to pray to a God whose image sometimes looks like his slave master. Politician man says, don't worry about the details. I will be your economic savior. Policeman puts his finger on the trigger. Fireman sees the spark and knows the heat is coming. Blackmail is impossible if you burn all the evidence, right? Black woman, concerned woman wants black male to open up his heart and let it all out. Black male runs from his feelings as if black woman would blackmail him. Black male feels disproportionately targeted. Preacher man tells him his blessings will come in the next life, but pay your tithes in this one. Politician man tells him everything is equal. Those are only glitches in the data. Policeman says stop resisting arrest when black male's hands are already up. Fireman sees the embers, the flames have risen. Blackmail is impossible if you burn all the evidence, right? Black woman, loving woman, gives her all to black male. Black male cannot receive her message from a fear of being loved. Return to sender. Black male is so far from his home address. Black male is lost. Preacher man tells him, follow me, I will be your prophet. Politician man tells him the exact same thing. Policeman says nothing, but pulls a trigger. Policeman says nothing, but pulls a trigger. Fireman sees the flames burning the flesh, but will not put it out. Black male's evidence turns to ashes. Black woman, strong woman, crying woman, does what she can to revive black male. Black male fears death and love equally. Black male just wants to live in peace. Preacher man believes in peace, as long as you pray to the same God. Politician man believes in peace if the price is right. Policeman just seems to shatter lives to pieces. Fireman just wanted a piece of the action. Black woman just wanted a piece of his heart. Black male knows where he belongs. That's that piece.
Can we hear something else from you? That was crazy, man.
A little something else. I mean, are we gonna go? Y'all want to go deep into the feelings? Because if you're ready, we can.
I'm ready for it all.
All right. We're gonna do it. Reading out of my personal favorite signature book, signed by Dr. Giovanni, actually. You will never realize how much I love you, even though I never met you, and I will never have a chance to tell you. I know that it hurts to be you because it hurts to be me. As brothers, our struggles are so intertwined without ever sharing a conversation, never even crossing paths, but walking up the same slippery slope that never seems to amount to the mountaintop. See, the fact of the matter is, it's not fair. The cards we are dealt are far from a royal flush, and in this game of spades, you are not supposed to be born hitting the black of your skin, because it's a learned action from the rest of the world. We are not supposed to be told that we are monkeys, so these concrete jungles are the proper housing place to be fitted. Exchange jungle with food desert, never having a proper introduction into nutrients. And if you are what you eat, what good can come from this toxic diet? See, brother, I understand. And you will never realize how much I love you, even though I never met you. And I will never have a chance to tell you. I understand what it's like to be hopeless. No one ever actually cares to listen to your story, treating you like an animal, when ironically pigs come to round us up like cattle to be held in barbed fences. It's a reason that they call it a trap house. Closest field trips we ever took to mountain rocks were closer to crack houses. Yes, there are a lot of us that go on from here to do great, wonderful, successful, and amazing things, but for every one success story that we love to boast about, there are 1,000 whispers that go crying and die in pain. See, brother, I know that every exit path seems like a dead end, and even the exit roads are like lakeshore during rush hour, seemingly impossible to get through, so why even burn the gas to try? See, brother, I understand. You will never realize how much I love you, even though I never met you, and I will never have a chance to tell you. I understand what it's like to hurt. I understand what it's like to hurt and not know why. I understand what it's like to have your hurt manifest itself into rage. I understand what it's like to lose hope. I understand that you can't lose what you never had. I understand what it's like when they tell you that you can be anything that you want to be when you grow up, and they barely believe the words deep down themselves. I understand what it's like to want more even though it's worthless after depreciation, and they tell you that you are worthless from $3 million trust fund high chairs. See, I understand, brother, I understand. So when you pulled that gun, homie, to rob me, when you pulled the gun, homie, to rob me for the same pennies that we both struggle to get, what hurt the most was not the feeling of the bullet penetrating the skin. What hurt the most was not hitting the cold concrete floor and watching my blood painted like a canvas. What hurt the most is you will never realize that, brother, I love you. And I understand. Even though I never met you, I never had a chance to tell you. And that's that piece.
Okay, I got to give you that was amazing.
Appreciate it.
So this is the opportune time to bring in Miss Nikki Giovanni. Hey, Nikki.
Hey, how are you? That was one. Well, Jordan knows how much I love his work, and of course, one of my favorite poems is Blackmail. But it's really, well, yeah, you can see Jordan is a genius, so nobody's going to really
Um,
appreciate him until he's been dead for about 100 years. That's what happens to writers, Jordan. I told you that. We had well, I had the pleasure actually of taking Jordan, not taking because I invited, Jordan went to Africa with us and helped
Oh
build
wow.
with our other good friend Kwame Alexander. That was a wonderful trip, Jordan. It really was.
yeah, absolutely,
So now
absolutely. I
tell
still
me,
got the picture.
you got to tell me how a material science engineering major somehow managed to run into a distinguished professor of, I'm assuming, English or literature at Virginia Tech. That, I mean, just walked down the hallway and was like, "What's up, Nick?"
So, so I mean, if you want the real story, I mean, I've always one first and foremost, I've always written music and poetry side by side, literally as I went to school for things in STEM. But the true story is that I was in a party. Nikki was not at this party. You gotta follow me. But I was in a party in Seattle doing an internship actually, and this pretty inebriated young woman heard that I was going to Virginia Tech. So in the middle of this party, she goes, "Promise me something," and I didn't know what the scenario was going to be. But she's like, "Promise me something." And I'm like, okay. She's like, "Take a class with Dr. Giovanni." And I was planning on doing it anyway. I was approaching my senior year and I was planning on taking the class anyway because I would have kicked myself forever if I didn't. But that put more of the fire under me where I definitely did it. And I don't know her name or where she is, but I have her to thank because it made me step up and get the courage to do it. So I think I was probably a little, hesitant just from the simple fact of who she is. You know?
So that's
I'm really glad.
interesting.
I remember Jordan sitting in class, and I thought, well, who was that sweet? And you did look sweet, a sweet young man. And I thought, well, who is that? And you can kind of see. I have a weakness, as I say all the time, for genius. And I kind of saw there's something going on, and I want to see what's going to come out, what he can do. And the two young men that I have, I don't want to say mentored, but taught that I think that I've really talking about standing in Jacob's ladder, were you and Kwame. Because I
Mhm.
watched both of them just grow and do so much, and it's like, oh wow, this is why we teach because we end up with a Jordan Holmes. I may never get another Jordan Holmes or another Kwame Alexander, but I've had two, so I don't have to have any more.
So, I was saying earlier when I was talking with Jordan and Emily that there's only 5 poems in this book. And
Mhm.
that's light even for a chapbook. But I have to tell you, just going through the book, and I did like a couple times, it feels heavy. It feels
Yeah.
weighted. And I don't know if that's me laying my stuff on the book or if it's the book like giving me a reason to lay my stuff with it. But it was really heavy. And it made me reread it. It made me look through it again. And I'm actually really happy that Jordan, you read the forward because I probably wouldn't have given it that spin.
Mm.
Um, and because it's the way you read it, it's almost like you're reading it while you're running.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know how I can envision it, but you're reading it like you're running, like it feels desperate.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. Like we're taking. It's like he's not taking in a breath because it's like this is my life, this is it. So I really appreciate being able to hear that. It's so important sometimes just to be able to hear somebody's poetic voice because you too often lay your own stuff on it. But
Oh, thank
so
you.
so why put this out there, Miss Nikki Giovanni? Why put this book out there?
Oh, first of all, I think what is it? Every other week, a black unarmed man is being murdered by the police, being shot by the police. One just happened today. Is Thursday. We just had a murder today, and it's just like, and I thought somebody has to at least say to black men, "I have a son. You have a son," and I consider Kwame my son, and Jordan. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking. what can I do? What all I have are words. And so and if all I have are words, and the words are what I have to give. But I wanted to show something. And I'm so happy because you have, and she will be with us soon, you have Emily on the show. And I thought, I want to just put a little book together to show Black men that we love them. And I understood, I really understood that other point too, Jordan, that you never get to tell it that. But what I really wanted to do, and that's why we opened the book with Jordan, and we closed the book with um,
Jericho
um,
Brown.
yeah,
Jericho. Yeah.
Jericho. That was before Jericho, thank God, won the Pulitzer, and it would have cost us money because we didn't have any. And
They get famous, don't they, and ask for money?
but Jericho is very nice. Jericho is a really lovely young man, and so it was nice to bring this together and to bring it together as a mother, as a woman who cares about what's going on. And it opened. My voice opened with the Million Man March, with Louis Farrakhan's Million Man March. Now I'm a Christian, so I'm not a Muslim. I'm not doing anything. But the Million Man March, I thought was an incredible thing, and I wanted to show, as Jordan did in the second poem. I wanted to show the kind of, I don't want to say fear, but the energy it took. And I used, you're talking about your son being in St. Louis, but somebody, a young man, a man in St. Louis, he's not even young, he's probably 50 years old or so, had to get up in a car that he wasn't really sure was going to make it and say, no, I got to be in Washington. I've got to show the world that I'm a man, that this is what I am. And I really wanted to, I love that poem so much. And a part of what that poem did, because I really hate, as everybody knows, but I say, I really hate Donald Trump. And I remember when Donald Trump brought a page in the New York Times and said that those 5 young men should be executed.
Mhm.
When we know now that he's the one that's buying 12-year-old girls and shipping them around the world for sex trade, in sex trades. So I'm really delighted right now that he's been impeached, and I'm really hoping that the Senate does the right thing and prevents him from ever. They have to find him guilty because he is. There's no way around. It doesn't mean that they have to, but it depends on a lot of things. But I do know this: Black people have done everything that we can to believe in the Constitution. And I mentioned earlier, I've been trying to write something about it, Jordan. I haven't put it all together. But the first time I saw Colin Kaepernick
Mhm.
kneel, he knelt before the anthem. And I thought, well, men only kneel on one knee when they're asking somebody to marry them. Will you be mine? Will you love me? And as a Virginian and as a woman, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, Colin, and Trump and them were mad about it. Oh, he shouldn't do that. Yeah, no, he should be. If the United States wants to be the wife of Black people, wants to be the lover of Black people, we've been on that one knee. So it's time for them to get up and do something. But we saw what their response was. They tried to tear the Capitol down. It's a
Mm.
damn shame.
Yeah.
It is a damn shame. So I think you answered this question for me already, but I went through several images of you before we picked the one that we used to sort of publicize the event. And every time I saw it, I was like, man, she's got like a great smile. She's got such a great smile. And then I would look into your eyes and I was like, but she looked like she trouble in them eyes though. I said, she looked like she could get a little bit of trouble. And I'm like, so I wanted to ask, so are you still a troublemaker? Because I know you didn't raise some hell back in the day. So I'm like, are you still a troublemaker?
Well, I'm kind of old to be a troublemaker now.
I
John
don't
and
know.
I, well, I try to act my age, but John Lewis and I graduated from Fisk University at the same time. And John used to always talk about it's good to make bad trouble. And so I think my job right now as a mature, and it's nothing, I really recommend old age, but as a mature person, I want to do things like standing in the need of prayer. I want to find a way to give something to Black men to say we care. And it's deliberately a small book. We could have tried to make it bigger, but I wanted a book that would go in there in their pocket if they wanted to. I wanted a book for the pocket of the young man who shot Jordan. Brother, you
Yeah.
don't know. I love you. If he had maybe read this book, maybe he would know. You
No,
see what
I
I'm
feel you.
saying? And and I think that it's important. So as it's where I am at this age, I'm not 28 anymore, 27 anymore, and nothing wrong with it. But as I am now, I can get some other things done. I love standing in the need of prayer. You said we should sing it, but I do. It's uh I love the spirituals because they teach us so much. The older people, we always act like the enslaved were ignorant. They were not.
No.
They were not uneducated. They were undegreed. And we have to remember that. And we have to be proud of the stories that they were able to tell through the songs because they were. They told not only the bad things that were happening, because there were a lot of bad things. Nobody in their right mind is going to say slavery is a good idea. But they also were telling how we got over. And that too is the spiritual. My soul looks back and wonders how we got over. And I just wanted to add to that. You know, it's well, it's us, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer.
Yeah. So speaking of the standing in the need of prayer, can you read the pieces from the book for us?
Oh my, those pieces are long. I'd like to read the one that I wrote though, as I have to put my glasses on, as a mother, and as a mother, when your phone rings, you
Mm.
too, as a mother, when your phone rings at midnight, you worry because you know that it's not a good idea. It's not. When my phone rings, when my phone trembles after midnight, I never think of good news. Somebody's birthday, a friend overseas forgetting the time difference. I never smell apples baking or nutmeg dancing on sweet potatoes, rolls rising, fish frying. I always look for a way to hold myself together. Being a 60s person, I know you have to be strong. When my phone trembles after midnight, I take a deep breath, reach for my glasses, think of my son, and I pray. And I think that all of the mothers right now are continually worried about their children just waking up. Well, Brianna's Taylor's mother, her child was going to bed and somebody's going to shoot her. So you have to worry what is going on here. And when you hear that phone, I use it till my phone trembles because I have an older phone. You have to say, well, I hope we make it through it. But we do know that my soul looks back and wonders. We do know we're gonna make it through. I had a bet with my son, by the way, and I won it. He said they'll never impeach him again, and I said, "Oh yeah, you're gonna owe me on this one. You owe me dinner," which he does now. I said they're gonna impeach him. They're gonna get him. But which is always, you were trying. I was lucky. I ran into Emily, and she'll talk soon. But I ran into Emily, and the I doubt that but the cover of the book, and Emily, I used to ask her would she help me do it, and of course what I had in mind was Trayvon Martin, and he's got his hoodie on, and I have the policeman. It's a white hand with a blue shirt, and it's a gun shooting at the boy's back. And Emily put a book in, and the book she put in his hand was The New Negro, which is really wonderful. I sent this in. You mentioned, and it's quite true. I've had 3 bestsellers, which no other poet is going to be able to say, and that's an unusual thing. I've had 3 bestsellers, and I put this book together and sent it to my editor. And my editor was like, "Well, Nikki, I don't think we can do this." And I'm saying, like, why? Well, you got the policeman shooting. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm sending you a book that is doing it. I've done incredibly well I've been with them 50 years. And I sent it to a couple of other people that I know, a couple of other people in the business. And everybody was saying, well, if you'll take out, when I mentioned the rape in Central Park that Donald Trump tried to have those boys committed, they said, well, if you'll take that line out, it'll be okay. And I said, well, I could also do something else, which is publish it myself. And I was lucky enough to get Emily, and Emily had a vision. We were talking. I thought Emily was black for the longest.
Emily, let's bring Emily in. Hey, Emily.
She wrote me. She said, "You know, I think you think I'm black, and I don't mind, but I'm not."
Well, let's bring Emily in. Hey, Em.
Hi, thank you, Nikki, for all those kind words. I really appreciate it. I loved working on this project because it really, I see the need, and it's so important to recognize, you know, the vulnerability of Black men right now. But yes, I hadn't seen Nikki for a really long time, and we've been communicating back and forth. Well, it was a couple of years. We met a few years ago, and then you know, I knew it was at a reading where I met her at the American Writers Museum here in Chicago, and I kind of had a feeling she wasn't going to remember all the people who had passed her that day. And so when she had made a reference to, well, I thought she was, I thought you were, it's so nice to work with someone of a woman of color, an artist. And I'm like, oh, I'm not, I think I wrote her back that I was what George Carlin used to call fluorescent Irish. So that was my, but it was a wonderful project. And I said, if you want to find someone of color to work on this with you, find a Black person to do it, woman to do it, that's fine. I totally get it. But, she really liked the style of the work and wanted to bring me on. And I am honored beyond belief to have worked on this book. I really am. And I really appreciate it, Nikki.
No, I appreciate you working with me. But George, there used to be a comedian. His first name was George somebody, and he started having with, "There's more to being Black than meets the eye," and I always liked that, so I always remembered it too. So we got there's more to being everything than what you see. So I appreciate you working with me, and I think we have a beautiful book. And I'm not angry, but I'm still not pleased at the people who turned this book down, because I had you, and you've won awards. I had me. I had Jordan, who was an up and coming and very well respected, and we had Jericho. And they're not there to put it together. It's like, well, I don't know. And I said, okay, my time.
Yeah, my time. So just so we know, I know that it's self-published. So do people reach out to you through your website to get the book, or because I remember Emily saying that I think maybe Emily, you have some copies as well. How do people get the book?
Okay, I have it on my website, and also it's on Amazon. So either one you can get the book through that.
Yeah, I think Amazon. I don't email. I'm probably the only person on earth who I just don't. And I have decided, and I think wisely so, a long time ago, I'm not going to email, because you spend all your time talking to people you don't know and you don't like. And so I don't know how. I never learned. And if you can't do it if you don't know it. But it is on Amazon. It is an independent bookstore, as I know. And we deliberately, as Emily and I like, but we deliberately, I mean, it couldn't be any cheaper. We were not trying to make money. We were trying to get an idea. We were trying to show that these are great men. All of the great men were not just the men who ran. I'm not against the men who ran. I'm not against Frederick Douglass and them. I'm not against Martin Luther King, who spoke so beautifully. But there were other people who stayed. The people who got their heads bashed in, the people who were lynched. These are the people I wanted to talk about.
So I really like the piece about Tupac, just because I'm curious if that was a true story or not, or you just sort of decided that was part of something you created in the background for him.
No, that was a true story. Well, it depends on how you feel about Suge Knight, and that. But that's how he got killed.
Oh no, I meant the fried chicken part with his cousin.
No, his cousin from Mississippi was visiting in Chicago, I mean, in Los Angeles, excuse me.
Right.
And Pac was supposed to go. He didn't actually want to go to Las Vegas because he didn't like boxing. He had no reason to go watch Mike Tyson box. No, that's history. You can go you can look it up beside me.
Mm.
Now there were no stars in the sky saying Thug Life that Afeni was able to read. That is that's what I did. But I would imagine as a mother, if something would have happened to my son, I would know it. And so that's why I had her driving back to Oakland. That's where they were. And as she drove back to Oakland, the sky lit up and said Thug Life, and she knew her boy was gone. But I read a piece about my grandfather and my grandmother because I lived with them, and I went to have Thanksgiving with them, and it broke a rule at Fisk University, and it's a long story. I don't really care, but I did it, and I went back, and Fisk was very upset with me. But they, I ended up had a note. I got kicked out ultimately, but I had a note that said, call your grandmother 31593, which is grandmother's phone number at that point. They didn't have the 5 2s in front. And when I saw that, I knew that grandpapa had died. And so the end of that poem, it's in Bon Appetit. Marcus Samuelson asked me to do it. But the end of that poem says, I knew when grandpapa was buried, anything that I knew about love was buried with him. And I wanted to say that, as a mother, there are things and things you move with. I love that poem too, by the way, because they've destroyed that community. And I'm one of the few people now writing about the Black community in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so I enjoyed. But I enjoy what Jordan does because he's letting it out out. And I think that that's important. And I enjoy what Emily is giving us because she's joining with us. And, as I say, Black is
So I should ask, we know Emily as an illustrator, but a lot of us know her as a writer and a poet. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask Emily to read a couple pieces. So Emily, can you read a couple pieces for us?
I would love to. I'm going to.
Cute glasses, by the way.
Pardon me?
I said cute glasses, by the way.
Thank you. They're they're funny. I used to teach a lot of poetry in the schools, and not in such great neighborhoods either sometimes. And this was inspired by one of my students. It says, it's called Teaching More Than Poetry. And I was introducing the class to the poet Safir Hamad, who is a Middle Eastern woman poet. So it goes like this. After lunch period, the sun crowns Maria's paper, where a poet like a Roman goddess carved a poem of passion from syllables of wanting the world to be different. The girl leans into the page like a desk lamp in a darkened room, studies the poet's blue-black hair, her sharp jaw. The poet's raw wisdom finds lines that speak of shifting boundaries like snakes in grass. Maria learns the venom in this legacy and how the world should be different. When my shadow fans across her desk, she moves her gaze up, taps her index finger on the poet's photo with the wonder of someone who has just watched birth. She whispers, "This is my favorite poet so far." Her eyes swirl with cool determination as her pen-armed hand moves to paper, and I know that the world will be different. Did you want to hear another one?
Absolutely.
All right. I will. This one is inspired. I've been writing a lot of poems about my dad because I'm working on a memoir. He was a Chicago artist who, like you mentioned in the beginning, was gay, and he recorded his life on audio cassette tapes. So I've been going through those, and they've been, bringing up memories. This poem is called "Daddy's Gay," and he was in the closet, of course, for his marriage, and that was 20 years or plus. It's called Daddy's Gay and I Don't Mean Happy. There was a reason why Daddy always had one foot out the door and the other in the hall closet, cloaked like a ghost, only less transparent. There was a reason why Daddy's friends talked avant-garde art, a foreign tongue in a land of lawn fertilizer and Little League. There was a reason why the artist always painted peepholes like he was gazing out or in from somewhere else. Daddy chose alternating lifestyles, like Clark Kent and Superman. No one saw all of him at the same time. His life ticked like a phony Rolex. 30 years of secrets took their toll. Half his life left in dust, a home and marriage hauled curbside. We pay for our secrets with integrity, the price of Valium, blocked lips. We pay for honesty with acceptance, shallow judgment, say goodbyes. Even so, his child's bedtime came when he propped a flashlight between pillows, lit the ceiling, and paraded silhouettes of plastic army men and dinosaurs, princesses and puppies. He told tales above shadows of teddy bears until I tickled, giggled, and dozed to the magic of a smaller world. Part of him was half a husband, but the whole of him was always my father. We got along great, in spite of everything.
That's wonderful, isn't it?
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've already heard the story about the memoir, and I know it's a long process for you. So, especially now that the tapes are at the Kinsey Institute, so it's interesting that you're still able to sort of glean some work out of that.
I've listened to over 100, close to 200 tapes, and I would say it's been a long process. I've been working on it probably 6 years, and I'd say I'm about 80% done at this point. So it's moving along. I printed it all out, and I had this like huge stack of paper, double sided. I was like, oh my gosh, I have been producing something real. It's not real till it feels like you print it out,
So I wanted to ask if Nikki could read one or two pieces, if you'd like, if you have something prepared.
Oh, well, my latest book, along with Standing in the Need of Prayer, is a book called Make Me Rain. And for those who are jazz fans, you know the song. It's a jazz song. And of all of the things on earth that are important, water is the most important. Food is important, and people like food and they eat food, and you need it. But without water, nothing happens. There's no life without water. So I wrote this book. It's called Make Me Rain. It's been out. I'll be so glad, actually, when I can travel again. I've been in the house since March. We haven't gone any place. We don't fly. We don't, do anything. And I enjoy being out on the road. Then I get to see my good friends in Chicago. We get to go to RL's and have oysters. But this is Make Me Rain, and this is the title poem. It's a love poem. Make me rain. Turn me into a snowflake. Let me rest on your tongue. Make me a piece of ice so I can cool you. Let me be the cloud that embraces you, or the quilt that gets you dry. Snuggle close, listen to me sing on the windowsill. Make me rain on you. It's just a love poem. And poets are always, we were sitting here, we were talking about all of our poems that are kind of on the mean side, or, making people make understanding changes and things. But poets are always writing love poems. And so, we're always, it's what we do. I think we fall in love first, and then we get mad at people. This is a poem called Yes. Spring or early fall rains are always welcome, yet they don't get names like summer hurricanes or winter storms. They don't make the national news. They just make us happy when we walk out to get the paper. We welcome the shower flowers' embrace, the quenching thirst the robins enjoy, the softness of the ground that allows them to build nests, that their eggs may grow. all things matter. We all say yes to the embrace of caring. And we say thank you to that you say yes to us. And so I really like I like that we say because we do spring rains don't get names. The winter name it's like hurricane. Susan is coming, and you get all of these big names, and then when it rains in the spring, which is wonderful, and you can just sit and look at it, they don't get a name. It's like it's gonna rain tomorrow. I think that's unfair. If you're gonna name the hurricane, then you ought to name the nice soft spring rain too. So, but nobody listens to poets. So
I love that. Where can we find Make Me Rain? Is that also on Amazon?
any place, yeah, Amazon, it's every place. It's been doing very well. It's William. It's my regular publisher, William Morrow. It can be found in local bookstore, any place actually. And of course, everything is available on Amazon. So that's it. But both of these books are out at the same time, and I kind of folded "Standing in the Need of Prayer" pretty much into "Make Me Rain" because I still wanted the idea. I wanted black men to be able to pick up the book, or black young men, black boys, I should say, and see that we love them. And so I kind of folded some of what I had to say into "Make Me Rain." So it wasn't sneaky of me. It was just the way you kind of get things done. When people say no, you go and get something else. You go another way.
So I want to bring Jordan and Emily back in just to talk to you all a little bit about just what's going on in general. So, Nikki, you talked about Make Me Rain, and because how many books have you written?
I think this is the 19th.
19th?
Hmm.
Wow.
I think.
I
Well,
mean,
my books are small. I mean, I don't write 600 pages. No, I'm a poet, so yeah, fine. But I think this is 19th.
19.
And I just keep putting things together.
It's funny in Chicago, Gwendolyn Brooks is sort of like our mother, and so
Oh,
I always think of her as being so prolific, but um, even in her work. So it feels like um, you guys were contemporaries because there's a piece that you wrote about her at her passing.
oh yeah.
So and so it's kind of hard to I won't say contemporaries because obviously she was older than you, but
Yeah,
um, um, but yeah.
well,
So it's interesting. You had a relationship with her, did you not?
well, we were friends, and Gwendolyn, we used to. We had her blurb is on the front of "Make Me Rain," and we laughed because you were talking about food earlier, but all black women, excuse me, Emily, maybe others, but all black women think they can cook, and of all of the black women that we know, and anybody that knows Gwen knows that Gwendolyn Brooks could not cook, and she would invite you over. Oh, well, come by and we'll have lunch. And you would go like, oh no, not lunch. She couldn't cook. So,
That's funny.
it was more fun.
We were talking about the poem Legacies, where the grandmother invites her granddaughter in because she wants her to learn how to make rolls. And I said that rereading the piece, it made me cry because it made me think of my grandmother's sweet potato pie, which I never learned how to make. So now I've got a couple things that I can make I can cook and I can cook well, but I always say that I never picked up like Southern cooking like that. So every once in a while I'll get a craving for some green beans and some potatoes. And my grandmother, and I'm telling you a lot, and this is not about me, she had 11 children. And so when she had 11 children, we didn't realize we were poor. That was just the food that was made. If there was no meat, why would you need meat? That was, it was green beans and potatoes, or it was cabbage, and maybe you get some neck bones with it. Because she'd save the packet of innards from the chicken and use them later to season the food. So every once in a while I get a craving for that stuff, and then I sort of I want to say I'm genetically inclined to make Southern food. So So I don't know necessarily how to make it, but I know how it's supposed to taste, and I'll cook it. And if I cook it for somebody else, they'll be like, "You forgot to add this." Like if I cook it and I share it with my mom, she'll say, "You forgot to add the vinegar." I was like, "Vinegar? Nobody said you put vinegar in greens, but I didn't know that." So
Oh
that.
yeah, you do.
Oh
But you
well.
have to cook. I know you know that. You cook your ham hock the night before. Put it in the refrigerator so that when you do your greens the next morning, you cut your greens, wash them and cut them. Then you have the ham hock, you cook them in that water. You need 2 cups of water. You cook your ham hocks in 2 cups of water. Otherwise, you're going to get too much because greens are very watery. And if you have too much water on your greens, it's not right. That's just what I share. And watch your salt. I had somebody's greens the other day, and I don't know, they must be crazy. I don't know what happened. Maybe they had their hand jiggled or something. But it was so, and I was thinking, I can't eat this. It's got too much salt. Because my grandmother was very picky about how much salt. She would shake it in her hand, and she would just, she would know. She would shake the salt, and 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 then she'd put it in. But it's very little. But I know to cook the ham hock the day before. I know
Well,
you know that.
yeah, see now, I hope everybody's listening because you just got a recipe for greens from Nikki Giovanni.
Can we
I'm
can we
thinking
also
there's a
talk about?
there's a cooking cookbook here with the
Yeah, Nikki, I think there's a
Hold on,
cookbook somewhere in this.
hold on, because Nikki also made me eat chitlins in a classroom in
Oh,
at Virginia Tech. Do you remember that? She slow cooked
I sure
a
did.
thing of chitlins in class and had the whole class eating them. And look, I don't want nobody to take offense to this, but I've never seen so many white folks eating chitlins. She had she had everybody in the class eating chitlins. Craziest thing I've ever seen.
that's hilarious. That's so funny. I think you do have a cookbook in you, Nikki. I think that should be the 20th book. I think that should be
That was
I should be some recipes and some poems mixed together. But I think
that was.
that's
I didn't know if you remember that, Jordan, but I thought I was supposed to teach you. We would teach in Harlem Renaissance. I said, let me teach these kids what we used to eat. But look at how we got over. We were healthy.
Yeah.
Cook chitlin. My granddaughter will eat anything, but I have only one girl cousin, and she won't eat chitlins. And I said that is so snobbish of you, because there's nothing more wonderful. You just have to cook them all night, and that's what you clean them and you turn them inside out and do it, and then you have to, let them cook all night. I cook mine in a slow cooker, but yeah, I wanted everybody to have a chance to know what it tastes like, what it is.
yeah, okay. But you didn't tell them what it was first, or did you let them eat it first and then tell them?
Yeah,
They
no,
eat
I'm pretty sure you did. Yeah,
fries.
I'm pretty
They
sure she
eat
did.
Papa John's. They eat stuff that is crazy. So we know chitlins are good for you. That we know. It's like we were talking about greens, and that's what. And excuse me for Emily, but we know that white people didn't know what greens were. So when the slaves cooked the greens, their master wanted the greens and gave what we call pot liquor. Gave the pot liquor to the
Okay.
slave,
That's
and
right.
it's the best part of it.
That's right. The pot
Yeah.
liquor. Don't deny no pot liquor. So I should ask, Emily, you're talking about your memoir, and Jordan, you mentioned that you're working on something. What else? What are you working on?
Yeah, so I have a music project that'll release next month, but I think what really kind of comes full circle for a lot of these conversations is a project called How Men Cry. And the whole focus, and Nikki actually wrote the foreword for the book of where essentially our focus is to make showing vulnerability a norm amongst men within the community. So we're looking for 1,000 men to submit stories about times that they cried. And then the second part of that project is essentially to help to point men towards therapy and support services. So and that'll launch with the book and a series of spoken word pieces, one of which I read tonight.
I'm excited to hear about that project. So, and I feel like although Nikki knows you now, I feel like I'm just discovering you. So I feel like you're brand new to me. So But I wanted to ask, because Nikki, you sort of mentioned some political type stuff, and you know, first of all, when we were talking about legacies and I was telling you about the sweet potato pie, I think the idea of showing Black love, and this goes to what Jordan was talking about, is for some people revolutionary, and I mean, it's something that we live with. Even the poem, I want to say Nikki Rosa, it was like, you know, I was happy the whole time, you know, like, and I was saying about my grandparents, my grandmother, she would cook all this food. We didn't know that we didn't think we were vegetarians. We ate what was there, and we didn't. Nobody said we were poor. It was, you know, but it was because we couldn't afford meat. I mean, that just, you know, and if there was meat in the pot, it was saved for my grandfather, and he got it. So, you know, but the idea of Black love is I don't think it's always something people readily see or
Right.
accept. You know,
That's, you know, Andre, that's why you can't listen to people who don't like you
Mm.
because they make you feel bad about something that you had enjoyed. And even now, and I was mentioning ham hocks, but I cook ham hocks now. I like ham hocks. I do, and I throw a couple in the pot, and I use my slow cooker, and I will put them in for overnight so that I have them in the morning. What did you have for breakfast? Oh, I had ham hocks. Well, I have some relatives who will laugh at me. The reality is, you should never let people who don't like you determine what it is you enjoy and what you remember. That's incredibly important.
Mm.
Oh,
well,
you
you
be
know, like,
unhappy.
well, you know, Emily talked about showing Black men as being vulnerable, but at the same time, um, uh, we need to appreciate that there's joy that lives there as well. You know,
Yeah.
that part of being vulnerable means acknowledging that there's joy. Um, you know, I think that that sort of gets left out that of that process, that in order for you in order to feel pain, you have to realize that there's something on the other side of that, and that's not all there is. So,
Well, and
you
part
know,
of
so go ahead,
that's
Jordan.
yeah, I was gonna say that's actually part of a lot of the work that I'm focusing on with my brand only, as well as just my personal brand is trying to change a lot of narratives. So like personally, I do a lot of like hiking and camping, and that brings me a lot of joy. And kind of to Nikki's point, one of the things that I get right away, oh, you know, Black folk don't camp, or we don't do this, we don't do that, and or the same thing, you know, for men, oh, basically we always have to be tough. There's no feeling, there's no emotion, whatever those narratives are. And that's literally something that myself and I know several other men in the community are working on flipping on its head. You know, we're not really accepting a lot of those narratives anymore as being true for us.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask too that uh, so Nikki, you mentioned you what did you say? You always appreciate genius or something like that.
I
And
do.
so so as my friend would say, who's flipping your skirt lately?
Well, there are a lot
Who
of
says,
really incredibly bright young writers out there. Renee Watson, who wrote Pieces of Me. I hope you've read that. I think Renee is quite exceptional. She's one of the young writers coming up. And of course, everybody knows and should know Ed Witch. Ed Witch is a little bit younger than I am, but Ed Witch should be actually the next Pulitzer Prize winner in terms of literature because she is. Speaking of brilliant, she's quite brilliant and quite wonderful. So there are. I do a lot. I read a lot of history because I like history. I like, and you had asked me, did this really happen? But I read a lot of history, and then I say, how does this fit in? How could this make sense? Because a lot of times people just lie, and it's not me. I'm not the one lying. It's what they've taken out, and Jordan knows that. It's what they you know the thing that let me say it this way as clearly as I can. Nothing makes me as angry as a line in a song that says black men are lazy.
Yeah.
There is nothing lazy about black men. They have worked their tails off. They do not get paid but they are not lazy. And that's a part of Porgy and Bess, you know. He's lazy and as he can be, he doesn't appreciate me. No, none of that. That's not working for me. Because I don't know lazy black men. I know black men who do crazy things, but lazy isn't one of them. And we have to fight that. And I know because Jordan, you have a dog who's wonderful, and my good friend who was there in Chicago, Mars Gearing, Mars has a dog, and Mars the thing that has changed Mars with this lockdown is that he got a dog, and then all of a sudden you realize somebody loved him. I mean, I love him, but that he realized somebody loved him, and I think having a
Oh
dog,
gosh, that's a big
there,
baby.
yeah, it really makes a difference. I recommend dogs. A lot of people like cats. There's nothing wrong with that. But I really, having a dog gives you a friend. And I have a T-shirt. I don't have it on today that says, "You can't drink alone if your dog is home." so, so it lets you open a bottle of wine. He said, "No, no," because Cleopatra, Theo's not feeling well today because she had to go to kennel and get her shots. And I'm sorry about that. She was just like, "Oh, how could she has that look. How could you do this to me?" But you know, you got to get there before spring comes, and next thing you know, they have heartworms and stuff. So she's not angry with me. She just wondered what did Cleo do that made you do that to me. So that's why you don't hear her barking. But I think dogs are wonderful because a dog loves you. When nobody else loves you, your dog does. And I do not understand how people can mistreat a dog or really an animal. I don't understand things like that. And I think that animals, just because they have four legs, I think that animals have to be respected in the same way that human beings. So if you kill a dog, you have to answer for it as if you had run over a human being. Nobody yet, but it's coming. It's coming because you just can't go around killing things because it's convenient or because you didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
driving on the street. You can't just run over a dog or even a cat. I mean, I'm not a cat person, but you can't run over something.
So now,
And so
Nikki, where are you located now? Where you hold up
Virginia.
in
I live
Virginia?
in yeah, I live here. It's my home. I'm not. I mean,
Well, so you're not far from DC. That's
I'm
yeah.
4 hours away from DC,
Okay.
so close to DC. But I live close to I'm in almost a forest. So there's a lot. We seldom where I am. I'm up a mountain. We seldom get deer, but every now and then somebody will hit a squirrel. And I have really been giving my neighbors, how did you hit that squirrel? And they all go, "Look, I didn't hit that squirrel. It must have been somebody else." But you get your point across. And
And you know what? I hit a squirrel once, and I swear the next day it was a line of squirrels in my car, in front of my car on the same street. Like, we know it was you. And I don't think I hit the squirrel, but I didn't know. But I just know his friends were all out in front of my car the next day, and I was like, I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm
So
sorry, you didn't mean to, you didn't deliberately. But we've seen people. There was a letter in the editor, Jordan, because you know how the editors are really stupid. But a man, one of the students, there was a snake, a rat, what they call a rat snake, and rat snakes don't bother anybody. And a student ran over the snake, and another student said, "Oh, I'll get out. I know the vet people." And he stopped to help the snake, thinking the guy didn't know. And the guy who hit him backed up and ran over him again. And so he ended up writing a letter and putting his license number in and said, "How can you murder a snake?" And I thought, "Oh, good for you." Because it's time that we stop all of that foolishness. It's just time that we stopped it. That you just can't go around killing people. And the guy was saying his defense was, "Well, the only good snake is a dead snake." And I thought, yeah, now I can change that easily because I've heard that all of my life. I can put a word in there and know exactly what you're saying. So I thought
Yeah.
he should be theirs. I thought that he should be called out. And I was so proud of the student who wrote the letter. Good for you. Good for you that you're saying this has to stop. And that's all he had was words. He couldn't
So
save the student. All he
so
had was
I just want to close with one last question. So how do I'm not sure how to put this, and I'll put it to everybody, but and I'll start with Emily. So revolutions sort of come and go. Um, and Nikki, you've already lived through the Black Arts Movement, and we've already sort of lived through the 70s, and certainly the times are different. But so what do you think is different about now, and do you think we're in the process of a revolution? So I'll ask Emily real quick.
Well, I define revolution. I mean, we're definitely in a process of things changing, and there's a lot of upheaval, but we have like two opposing forces right now in America that are, I like to think good wins, good wins out. And I think it does in the long run, but there's some really ugly stuff that happens in the middle of it. And I grew up in the 60s. So when I marched and did all kinds of protesting and stuff, and in some ways this is very similar, and it rings very, very real to me. But in other ways, it's so different because the rising forces that we've seen in the Capitol are so hate oriented. And that wasn't the protesting people of the 60s that we had. It was, some bad stuff happened, but it just wasn't it seems like there's a broader scope of behavior that we're seeing that is very disturbing.
So Jordan, what about you? How does this affect your writing? I mean, I know you're talking about the project that you're working on, but what does it mean for your writing?
Just kind of the general circumstances of what's going on within the world, you mean?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a challenge just being Black and being a man, but then being an artist, you're already ultra sensitive to it. So I'm curious if you talked about one project, but how is it affecting your work?
Yeah, in a way, positively from the standpoint of I never run out of topics to address or for problems to try to solve. I mean, I think that in a way there kind of is a renaissance and or revolution going on within the arts at times like this, because turmoil breeds great art. And I think that that's kind of still been happening for me personally. I think my angle with it is whenever the world gets tremendously loud outside, I usually turn inward to more of the quieter things in terms of processing it. So I look at some of the things that are happening within the country as growing pains, and I think that some of that is kind of natural for trying to adjust from a system that's been unfair to many.
Yeah. So Nikki, I'll close it out with you. You said a couple things already, but what is it? I want to say Nina Simone said I forget what the line is, but it's our duty as artists to record the times or something to that effect. So and Jordan mentioned that. So how are you being impacted by this? And at your mature age, you've seen it all.
Well, I've
You
seen
said
a lot,
I didn't.
but I am very proud of Black Lives Matter. I am very proud to see. I was sorry about the death, of course, of George Floyd, but to see people in Perth, Australia, marching with people in America, that was wonderful, and to see that we're reaching out, that Earth is beginning to come together in its own particular way. And I I'm kin to slaves, so my ancestors said that there's always going to be, it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. And we know that the Lord does not come when you call him, but he comes on time. And I don't have a problem with that. He's going to come on time. So I am very happy right now. I think that what we're seeing, the changes in America, because I think that America will make these changes. I think that, and I am positive. I said earlier, oh, I hate Donald Trump. That's not a big deal. But I really am positive that most Americans want to see a positive change. And so the leaders have to do it. I'm just a poet, but I think that there are some people out there who are going to help make those changes.
Well, I will when they write your tombstone, it should say not just a poet. And I hope that's not for a very, very long time. Because we already know you could cook. So hopefully you were listening and got that recipe for greens and how to make a ham hock. Because I might have a taste for it this weekend now. Now that you done brought me to it. But I want to say thank you to Emily Calvo for her work and for joining us this evening. I really want to say thank you to Jordan. I really appreciate your perspective and hearing your work. Again, I feel like I've just discovered you, so I'm eager to chat more with you about what's going on. And then Miss Giovanni, I have to tell you, I am honored and feel humble and blessed to have talked with you, to hear your words, and for lack of a better word, you feel like home to me. So I thank you.
Well, and I'm glad to see Emily and Jordan. It's always good to see Jordan. I will be glad, Jordan and Emily, when I can get back up to Chicago. Because right now you just can't go anyplace.
Right.
Yeah.
When you come, let us know. I'll try to make a pot of greens that ain't too wet and not too salty. Which means I'll be inviting you to my sister's house because I probably won't do it.
Come on now, be a Southern cook. Just being chef. Be a Southern cook. Because that's how we did it. We did it the way that don't feel right. We should say, no, that's too much. No, you didn't clean them greens. Look at that stem. See?
Well, again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Remember the Guild Literary Complex. Our web address is www.guildcomplex.org. If you want to reach out to Emily Calvo, her is emilycalvo.com. If you want to reach out to Jordan, his website, and you can see it by his name, is Dexter, DXTR, Spitz.com. And then, of course, there's Miss Nikki Giovanni. Thank you so much. Her latest book, besides Standing in the Need of Prayer, which is a great little chap book, and like I said, it may be light, but it's very heavy. And Make Me Rain. I love that. I love that book. So I'm looking forward to picking that up at any independent bookstore. And I think Bookshop may still, because they go through the independent bookstores. For those of you who don't like Amazon and don't want to feed the beast, you can always go to bookshop.org and you can check out books. So again, thank you so much. The Guild Complex thanks you. And everybody have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.